Speaking freedom. Speaking freedom. Giving you the answers to be free. Be free. Be free. 'Cause we're speaking freedom.
So this video is kind of a reflective post. In December, I found some articles from when my uncle Shirley, quote unquote, his nickname was Baby because he was a junior, Winslow, was killed by the police. And so I always heard that my uncle was killed, and it was so confusing as to what happened that day and, how he died. And it was confusing mostly because nobody really ever talked about it. I think I really didn't understand what happened. I just knew that he had passed away or got killed or whatever. But I was up under the assumption that he was with somebody related to us, or that something else happened that led to him dying. And when I found the newspaper articles in December, on December the 10th of 2021, I want to say baffled in a sense. It was hurtful. So in the newspaper articles, it says that my uncle was a suspect of a robbery where the stop and go was robbed of $50, some food stamps, and 3 bottles of wine. And that he was, bruh, I know you're trying to save the squirrel, but you see somebody behind you, girl. And he was killed. They said that he pulled out a revolver at the scene of the crime. At the scene of the stop. And when he pulled out the revolver, the officer shot him. Now, this happened in 1976, May the 23rd of 1976, give or take. And I say give or take because the first article was on the 23rd, but I don't know if that was a Sunday or not. The actual incident happened on a Saturday. So 40 something years later, and literally people are still getting killed by the police and accused of having weapons. Now, I kind of wish that my grandmother was living, not the way it sounds, but I wish that she was alive so that she could see how many people just since 2013, 2004, how many people that was been killed by the police since 2016 that were accused of having weapons but literally had no weapon. Now back then they didn't have cell phones, but it could have been some wine, it could have been cigarettes, it could have been a lighter. He could have had anything in his hand, and they would have used that, the police department would have used that as a convenient reason to shoot, especially because he's black. Now, I was just talking to myself, like, man, it's kind of baffling that all of these things still happen today, and that in the time when it happened to my family, it was the exact same narrative. Somebody is suspected of doing something wrong, and we haven't gotten a chance to actually convict them or see what happened, ask no questions about what went on. They just literally opened up and shot and start shooting. And when I listen to, because I've kind of been doing semi quote unquote interviews of my aunts to kind of see, like, okay, so my Uncle Gordy passed away in 1995. I think the same year that Tupac passed away. my uncle Michael, who is my other uncle. I had 3 uncles initially. Well, I've only ever met 2 uncles because my uncle baby was killed 6 years before I was born. Actually, I believe that at the same time when he was passing away, my brother Kaci died of medical issues. So it was around the same time period. So I feel like, which makes me feel like, that me being born and alive is special, and it's a combination of the spirits of my uncle and of my brother that protects me and have kept me throughout the things that I've gone through and struggled with in my life. So like I don't have anybody else like that to ask. Like I can ask cousins or other people that may be old enough to have known my uncle baby, just to kind of understand what type of person he was, because my mother and my 2 aunts say that he was a very protective person, but my granddad was abusive to my grandmother, so that means that they saw the abuse a lot. So he was a protective person. He was like a real stand-up guy, but he had been in trouble. And my granddad, I believe, had him locked up at one point, or he went to jail at one point. I don't know if he had guns or what type of things that he was doing prior to, but they didn't have anything bad to say about him. But he was only 19 or just turned 20 when he passed away, so it's only so much that somebody could say. Looking back though, like, it has kind of had me kind of emotional, and it was a struggle to actually post it on social media. I don't think that I'm ashamed, because there's nothing to be ashamed of, especially knowing that you could be accused of anything by the police and they will use that as a reason to shoot. So even if he didn't do it, shit, it could have been some other people all together. Likely it might have been the people that he was in the car with. However, my point is, they'll stop anybody over. They'll accuse anybody of anything. And when they shoot, they automatically, based on the immunity laws, they have to say that you did something that made them fear their life. And, after my own battle with the United States of America and being injured by the VA and the lies that they told in order for them not to be liable and sued for what they did, it makes me feel like if they'll lie to me to my face, then they would have lied to my grandmother to her face and made her believe that they didn't have a fucking choice. But what they did do is, it appears that because of what happened, that my grandmother made sure that the other people, the other young adults that were involved, was not charged. I don't understand how my uncle gets killed, and literally, I mean, it's been 40-something years later, so they're saying that there is no mandate to keep records that long, so they would have been tossed out in the 90s. Like in 96, they wouldn't have been able to get rid of all that evidence. And the only thing that I see when I go to Montgomery County case and history report is when he went to jail in 74. And based on that, from my understanding, both of my aunts and my mother said that he did not want to go back to jail. I don't know what he experienced in jail. Back then, jail was probably way worse than what it is right now, with torture and just maltreatment and all of those things. But they said that, okay, so he was shot and transported to the hospital. He did not die at the scene, but they said in the transition from him being shot arrested and transitioned to the hospital, transferred to the hospital, that he kept saying to tell his mother he didn't do anything, that he didn't do it. From what I understand, from what I was told from my aunts, is that he was at one of my aunt's house, and those were technically her friends that he met at her house, and he was getting a ride to wherever it is that he was going, probably home, or taking, like, I don't know if he was going on a date with the young lady, and the two guys was up to something that they had probably planned out already or whatever. But from my understanding, he went to my aunt's house. While at my aunt's house, he met these people, and he got a ride. Like, and when I think about how those type of things happen, where you could be at somebody's house and you'd be like, all right, I'm about to get up out of here, and they'd be like, well, we about to go too, and you'd be like, you know what, well, I'm gonna just ride with y'all. And he hopped in the car with some people that already had a malicious plan. Now, myself, understanding various perspectives, there are several things that run through my mind when it comes to the death of my uncle baby and how he got in the car. One thing that comes to my mind is these people, he was the youngest person in the car, 19, 20 years old. The other people were 23, 24, 25. So, in my mindset, it seems as though it was either one of two things. Either he jumped in the car with some people that he wasn't sure of or didn't know well enough to know that they would do something like this, and just get caught up in the wrong place at the wrong time. You know how you just, like, literally, it's like somebody jumping in the car with somebody and you don't know they about to go get into a shootout. Now you caught up in a shootout because you just jumped in the car with the wrong people. That's one narrative. Another narrative is that my grandmother was already in politics. So if these people had criminal records of any kind or any sort, or they had been, like, locked up or anything like that, then there's a possibility that they were used to go and intercept my family to get access to whoever would be the most vulnerable. That's a narrative. The other narrative is that it literally was just a bad, catching a ride with the wrong people, bad place, bad time at the, and it just went south. And if you know the personality of the Winslow name, we're very outspoken. We're not going to go down for something that we didn't do. So I could see him like, hold on, I didn't do it. And possibly when he's, being told to get out the car and putting his hands up. And just as something as simple as putting your hands up will justify them shooting you. Now, the thing is that when you are a political figure, especially in the 70s, like when they COINTELPRO type shit, you know what I'm saying? Like, they could have literally said, we got, it's Winslow's son that's in the car. Like, what do you want us to do? And if they saw that it was my uncle and they knew that it was my grandmother's child, then there's a great possibility that the person was given the order to shoot and could not refuse the order to shoot the suspect that was being belligerent, that was being loud, that was, you know what I'm saying, like, that was aggressive or quote unquote posed as a threat. And so it could have been an order that the person felt like they couldn't uphold. Now, it's crazy because I believe that the people that were involved knew my grandmother. They might have been supported in getting police jobs by my grandmother, but I don't know the details to those things. Now, I did go and try to see if I could find any type of archived police records, because if there's an officer involved shooting, why is there no police report of the arrest? Y'all said that he was arrested and was died at the hospital. So, and I don't know, my grandmother could have made them bury the police reports because she didn't want it to be that her son was robbing somebody when she's a political activist. I I wouldn't think that she would do that, but I don't know. But again, this is something in my family that was not greatly talked about, that has not been shared. I don't know if anybody ever seen.
Hi, I'm Dr. Kaci. Not your typical clinical doctor. I am an ordained minister, but not your typical minister. I am also a certified life coach, love coach, sex coach, solution focused coach, transformation coach, and more. I have a whole lot of information that I would like to help you grow with. And I hope that soon I can help you be the best you that you can be. Confidence, spirituality, and purpose. That's wholeness, complete.
In the articles that I'm pulling out, because when I told my not my grandmother, Lord, my grandmother must be hovering around trying to get me to get the damn story straight, in spirit. When I talked to my aunt and told them that I had found the articles, even my mom, they all seemed quite surprised that these articles exist or that any information. Matter of fact, the craziest thing is that if I would not have went and paid to find these articles, I literally would have never known what happened to my uncle. There is literally no documentation that my uncle ever existed, or was killed for real, outside of me finding these articles. And that is like, I'm hurt. I'm hurt that my uncle got killed. I'm hurt that I was never able to meet my uncle. I'm hurt that my uncle dying affected my grandmother, my mother, both my aunts, both my uncles. When I think about the drug use in my family, when I think about the struggle with addiction and pills and gambling, when I think about the avoidance of hurt and pain, when I think about all of these different aspects of who I know either my grandmother to be, my mother to be, what I know about my family and all of that, literally learning the facts behind my uncle's death explains so many things. It makes me have so much more compassion for my grandmother's mindset and mode. Even when I think about how she used to she would harass me. Like, she would talk real greasy and nasty to me when I would be out in the street. And not out in the street, like I never was a hooker. I never was on any hardcore drugs. I smoked my weed, I drank a little bit, and I kicked it with niggas who was getting me lit. And but she would always have little comments to say about me out riding with niggas, you know what I'm saying? And now some shit makes sense, cause she know that her son got caught up in the wrong people in the wrong place and ended up dead because of, you know what I'm saying? And now it feels like that the whole time she was trying to protect me. Now it feels like when I think about how strict my cousins were, or when I think about, like, it's just certain little shit that I think about now, it's like, damn. If I lost a relative to the street, getting killed by the police, it would make me move different. But then I think about other things that have gone on in my family, other family secrets that nobody talk about, like getting molested or getting abused, or, like all of those things that happen, especially like in the 70s, and in the early 80s, where, something would happen and they would just sweep it under the rug. They would try to make it go away. We don't talk about that. That's where that whole, what goes on in this house, stay in this house, and all of that. And when I think about all that, because, I'm so glad that I moved away from Ohio. I'm so glad that I have tapped into God, and that God is revealing these things to me. I don't know what it is that made me go and search these things. Like, I've known about my Uncle Baby, his existence, for a very long time. But in December, when I was talking to my aunt, she actually was like talking about it. And I was like, really? Well, damn. And I'm thinking to myself, like, it gotta be an article. If he was killed by the police, I don't give a fuck. What the fuck? If it, especially because she was a political figure and an activist, there's going to be some fucking articles. And something was just like, go look. What day? What? And I'm on the phone with my aunt, like, what day you said that was again? When did it happen? What I need to look? You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to figure it out. May 20. Oh, okay. And I looked it up, and it popped up, and I was just like, oh my gosh. And then that made me look up all the articles of my grandmother's work and the things that she pioneered for, as far as helping poor people, helping Black people get, some equality. Like, my family history is deep. And it is, an eye opener. It grows my soul. But being away from Ohio, specifically, I believed helped me to come to a place where my mind would go that far, because if I was there, I would just be okay with whatever was told to me. But now I'm able to go look into it and dig deep to understand what really has happened in the past. And it's so crazy. I'm so upset because I tried to, like, my family is originally from Springfield, Ohio. I'm literally related to John Legend. His grandmother and my grandmother are first cousins. So that make us like what, second cousins or somewhere down that. But maternal cousins. His great grandmother and my great grandmother were sisters. So his grandma Margie was my cousin. We're all from, like, originated from Springfield, and then eventually my grandmother moved to Dayton, Ohio with my grandfather, who was being raised by his uncle because his mother died in childbirth. And that is what this is the story that I've been doing some family research over the last few days as I've been, looking and trying to find the stories, the police reports from the newspaper articles, because if there is newspaper articles, then there have to be police reports that said that the case went through the grand jury. So I've been, like, calling and asking questions, and I haven't called a whole lot of people because my family is very hush hush. Like, they feel like they're breaking some loyalty if we talk about shit that happened. But in my opinion, you can't grow until you know what you're growing from. So to come across all of this has been crazy. I tried to look up newspaper articles in Springfield to see if I could find any history from, like, my granddad Everett. That would be my great grandfather. My granddad's father, he died early on, which left him with Uncle Shirley Schaefer, which my granddad was named off of. And then he passed away. And then he was raised by his uncle, Gordon, which my Uncle Gordy was named after. And so my great granddad Everett was from Springfield, I believe, also. And I don't know how my granddad migrated to Dayton, Ohio, but from my understanding, after my grandma moved to Dayton with my granddad, and then eventually, over time, my great grandmother on my grandmama's side moved from Springfield to Dayton, and they got her a house or whatever. She was living in Dayton with my grandmother, and then that's how the family kind of trickled into being in Dayton, because my grandmother had went and set up her roots and made a political activism career out of the space that she was in. Eventually she divorced my granddad because of the abuse. I believe that he used to beat my grandmother all the time. And when my grandmother was pregnant with my youngest aunt, he kicked her or, abused her during the pregnancy, to where my aunt's face has some disfigurement because of what my granddad did to my grandmother while she was pregnant. So, like, when I look at my eyes and I see the history of my family and all the trauma and all the things that we've gone through generationally, in a bloodline, then it makes me understand, like, just in my life alone, without even knowing all of this, like, I've been through a whole lot. So if they say your eyes tell the story of your soul, then you'll see that I've been through a lot and I've survived a lot if you look into my eyes. But just knowing all of this family history, I feel like I got a lot of work to do, a lot of things to break, like strongholds, just stuff, but I am very resilient, and the resilience is not by chance. Like, my Aunt Esther, John's great grandma, she was a whippersnapper. She was great. Like, I loved her. I remember going to spend a summer with her, where it started out, I think I went and spent like a day or two with her, and then I was like, well, I wanted to go back. And they let me go for a summer, so I was there for like 2 weeks in her house in Columbus, and or Springfield. It's like Columbus, Springfield. I think it might have been in Springfield, but I feel like she lived in Columbus. It was like she lived in this big white house. It looked like it was multi-level, but I only remember being on the first level. And then she had her daughter lived right across the street, and there was a school with a playground and a park right behind her house. So I remember going, like, I can visualize it right now, standing in her front yard. There was a long sidewalk, and across the street, like, it was a corner, like, house, like, kind of catty corner, her daughter lived. And then it was a park literally on the side of her house. In the back of the house, it was like a church, or it was like just a whole little. So, like, I have so many, you know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like I've answered some of my own questions in this, but I believe that the spirit of people will have you to find the answers, so that it will be able to allow their spirits to rest, to allow their souls to be at peace. So maybe it was something that my uncle needed me to find for whatever reason. And this is like in real time. Like, I just last week was trying to call and figure out, do y'all still have police reports? Where are the historical reports of my uncle being killed by the police? And why is it no documentation of this shit happening? You know what I'm saying? Trying not to get frustrated, because it has been 40 some years. But at the same time, you know what I'm saying? Like, so my uncle get killed by the police, and there's no police record, no police report of his arrest. Nobody got arrested that night, or the arrests that were made, they wiped out their record. It was clean. It was like, kind of like that night never happened outside of the news reports. And then when they left out of the meeting with the police chief, they didn't want to talk about it. The only thing that I can come up with why they would not want to talk about it is because they made it go away for the other people involved also. So instead of talking about it and saying, well, this is what happened and he was innocent or anything like that, I don't know. This is just my assumption. My grandmother is passed, so I can't ask her. I see her in my dreams, but I don't know if she's going to tell me these things. So, I'm just doing a reflective video because I never knew exactly what happened to my uncle. I never knew the details, and finding the newspaper articles opened the pathway for me to call my aunts and really talk to them, and even talk to my mother about it. And just hearing them share their stories has been very liberating and sombering at the same time.